Hello and welcome back to Space This Week, your source for weekly space news. This week we've got a good show full of lots of news, including a Starship launch. Yeah, Starship launched last week. All right, so Starship kicking off her launches. We'll talk about the most important launch of them all, which was Starship Flight 11 on Monday, October 13th, 2025 at 6:23 p.m. Central Time. Starship lifted off from Starbase, Texas, on its 11th flight test. This was the final flight of the second generation Starship booster and the first generation Super Heavy booster, as well as the final launch for the current configuration for Pad 1. They're getting rid of the ring. Every major objective on the flight was achieved, providing all of the data that SpaceX needs to prepare for the next generation of Starship and Super Heavy. This consisted of Starship 38 and the reused booster 15, which flew on flight test 8 in March. The flight test began with Super Heavy igniting all 33 Raptor engines and ascending over the Gulf. The first stage ascent was followed by a hot staging maneuver, which is what they've basically done for every single flight, except for the first one where it flipped like crazy. With Starship's upper stage igniting its 6 Raptor engines to continue its flight to space. Following stage separation, the Super Heavy Booster 15 completed its boost back burn and put it on its course to a pre-planned splashdown zone off the coast of Texas, where it ignited 12 of the 13 planned engines under the same angle of attack tested in the previous flight. The booster descended until successfully igniting all 13 engines, including the one that did not relight on the boost pack burn, for a high thrust portion of the landing burn. It ended up the booster successfully executed a unique landing plan for the burn while it basically just hovered in place above the ocean, and then it shut down its engines and it dropped into the water. After completing a full duration ascent burn, Starship achieved its planned velocity and trajectory. During the flight, Starship successfully deployed 8 Starlink simulators and executed the third in-space relight of a Raptor engine, demonstrating a critical capability for the future deorbit burns. Starship re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and was able to gather extensive data on the performance of its heat shield as it was intentionally stressed to the test limits of the vehicle's capabilities. In the final minutes of flight, Starship performed a dynamic braking maneuver, mimicking the trajectory of future missions for Starbase return. Starship then guided itself using its 4 flaps to a pre-planned splashdown zone in the Indian Ocean, successfully executing a landing flip, landing burn, and soft splashdown. Focus now turns to the next generation of Starship and Super Heavy, with multiple vehicles currently in active build and preparing for tests. This next iteration will be used for the first Starship orbital flights, operational payload missions, propellant transfer, and more. Yeah. Starship is basically just getting ready to go to Earth orbit, the moon, Mars, and beyond. Now, what was particularly impressive to me about the whole mission was the holes in the tank. They burned through holes in the tank. They just were able to burn through holes in the tank, and it didn't do anything wrong. It didn't do anything. Now, that is like a now, if it had burned through the tank and then burned through that like center tank, which is roughly the size of a Falcon 9, then there would have been an issue. But the header tanks and everything held up, and as long as the header tanks hold up, the basic structure of the rocket is fine. Like, it'll land, which is actually kind of cool. Yeah. So personally, I think that Starship is in a spot where it can actually. I think Starship, if you really wanted to, could hold a human in an EVA suit, if it were to land back at Starbase and they were able to get the person out. I think that's how confident I am in it right now. And it's really interesting to see like how this whole HLS thing is shaping out. We'll talk about that more in next week's episode, but there is so the transportation secretary, who's currently the NASA, like the NASA secretary right now, just interim, is wanting to fold NASA into transportation, which is just ridiculously dumb. And in the same time, he also canceled SpaceX's HLS contract. But Elon had like a freak out over that, and is basically saying that he's going to now beat NASA to the moon, which is honestly, let's go. Let's go. I like that. Yeah. All right, I'm going to move into our normal launch coverage. All right, so the week started off on October 10th at 10:20. Orion Space, a Chinese rocket company, launched 3 satellites into a sun-synchronous orbit. Only one satellite is widely known. It's an Earth observation satellite, Jilin-1, wideband 02B07. The rocket launched from Haiyang Spaceport in the Yellow Sea near the city of Qingdao. On October 13th, at 6 a.m., CASC launched Xinyan 31 on top of a Long March 2D into a polar orbit from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in Inner Mongolia, China. The Chinese satellite reported to be for new optical imaging technological demonstration purposes. Its actual usage is not known. Also on October 13th at 9:58 p.m., SpaceX launched 24 Project Kuiper satellites on KF-03 on top of a Falcon 9 into low Earth orbit from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Kuiper is an internet constellation designed to compete with Starlink. Kuiper is owned by Amazon. The booster B-1091 landed on a shortfall of gravitas for its second flight. Its previous flight was KF-02 on August 11th for a 63-day turnaround. On October 14th at 12:33 p.m., Rocket Lab launched Strix 5 on its mission named Owl New World from Launch Complex 1A on the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. The Strix satellite constellation is the first bulk buy of launches for Rocket Lab. Tranche 1 Transport Layer C was launched on October 15th at 7:06 p.m. and it was 21 satellites that SpaceX put into a polar orbit for Lockheed Martin as a part of the Tranche 1 Transport Layer C. It's a long name. This is a part of the United States Space Force's Space Development Agency, the SDA, for the Proliferated Warfighter Space Architecture, the PWSA, Tranche 1 Transport Layer Constellation, which will provide assured, resilient, low latency military data and connectivity worldwide to a full range of warfighter platforms from low Earth orbit. The booster B-1093 was launched from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base and flew for its 7th flight and landed on the autonomous drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. The booster's previous flight, Tranche 1 Transport Layer B, on September 10th for a 35-day turnaround. On October 15th at 9:33 p.m., CASC launched SatNeo Leo Group 12 from Commercial Launch Complex 1 on a Long March A from Wenchang Space Launch Site in Hainan, China. The SatNex constellation is operated by the China Satellite Network Group. On October 17th, China launched Long March 6A into a polar orbit from Taiyuan, yeah, I think that's pronounced Taiyan. Taiyan Launch Center in Shaanxi, China, with 18 satellites on board. These satellites will provide low Earth communication for KU, Q, and V band payloads for the G60 constellation operated by Shanghai Space Sail Technologies, with funding backed by the Shanghai local government. On October 18th at 11:33 p.m., China Academy of Sciences launched 3 payloads aboard a Kinetica 1 rocket. These satellites were launched from Site 130 at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in Inner Mongolia, China. One satellite, PRSC HS1, which is a hyperspectral Earth observation satellite operated by SuperArco in Pakistan. The other two are... I didn't write down the other two. Give me 1 second. All right, so the other one are AirSat 3 and 4. 2 X-band synthetic aperture radar SAR Earth observation satellites made by the Chinese Academy of Sciences with a 0.5 meter resolution. AirSat is built for Terra X base of Malaysia, and those also were going into a sun synchronous orbit. There were also three Starlink flights this week. 2 were from Cape Canaveral, and 1 was from Vandenberg Space Force Station, giving us a total of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 flights this week, which is insane. In space news, Orion arrived at the Kennedy VAB for stacking onto SLS for Artemis 2, which will launch no earlier than February 5th, 2026. Yeah, that's all I had that's all I had for you guys today. Please make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and if you're listening to this on Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms, make sure to check out my YouTube channel, and also, if you're on the YouTube channel, make sure to check out the Spotify's or anything like that. If you like books, my wife also runs a book podcast. I'll leave that linked on the screen. And if you're listening to this on the podcast version, I'll leave it linked in the description. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week for another video.